The first blast hit the ground 3 steps ahead of me, and I was already moving before the sound finished reaching my ears. I did not think. There was no time for thinking. My body turned, my arm shot out, and I pulled the Empress of Threnna behind me so hard that her feet left the ground for a moment. Her guards were shouting. The sky above the causeway lit up in orange and white, and somewhere behind that light, unseen shooters were trying to end her life before she ever reached the assembly hall. My name is Ethan Cole. 2 weeks earlier, I had been given a simple job. Walk beside the Empress, look calm. Let the cameras see a human standing near her, so the people watching from 100 worlds would believe that humanity trusted her, and that she could trust us back. Nobody told me I would end up using my own body as a wall between her and death. The Empress, whose name was Alira, was small compared to me, with pale gold skin and a second, smaller pair of eyes that most people found unsettling until they got used to it. She was calm in most situations, even boring council meetings that stretched for hours. She was not calm now. I could feel her fingers digging into my arm as I pulled her toward the only cover on the causeway, a low stone wall meant for decoration and nothing else. Another blast tore into the wall just as we reached it. Dust and small stones flew into the air. I turned my back to the wall and to her, using my armor as extra shielding, and looked out at the tree line across the open field. 7 shapes moved between the trees. 7 armored figures, weapons raised, closing in with the kind of patience that told me they had planned this for a long time. I keyed my comm. My voice came out steadier than I felt. Guard team, fall back to the tree line on your side. Do not engage in the open. Protect the shuttle route. I have the Empress. A voice crackled back, sharp with fear. It belonged to a young guard named Dara, one of Alira's own soldiers. Ethan, there are too many. You cannot hold this line alone. I am not asking permission, I said. Move. I heard boots retreating through static, and I was glad. If everyone stayed in the open, everyone would die. If I could buy even a few minutes, backup would arrive from the shuttle pad, and Alira would live to see the end of the day. She grabbed my sleeve. You cannot fight 7 of them, she said, her voice deep and fast. There is a shelter beneath the hall. If we run now. There is open ground between here and there, I said. You will be an easy target the entire way. Stay behind me. I did not wait for her to argue. I raised my rifle over the wall and fired twice at the nearest shape moving through the trees. It dropped, and for one heartbeat, I believed the odds might actually favor us. Then the remaining 6 spread out, moving in a pattern that told me they were trained fighters, not simple raiders. They were trying to surround the wall. The second wave of fire came fast. I felt the first hit strike my shoulder plate, a burning shock that spun me half around. I gritted my teeth and stayed upright, keeping my body between Alira and the incoming fire. She tried to pull me down, tried to get me to take cover properly, but if I dropped, she would be exposed on one side. I stayed standing. The second hit landed on my side. The armor absorbed most of it, but pain shot through my ribs like a hot wire. I heard Alira gasp behind me. I forced my legs to hold their position and fired back, taking down a second attacker before the rest scattered into new positions. Ethan, Alira said, and this was the first time I heard real fear in her voice, instead of simple worry. You are hurt. I am fine, I said, which was not true, but it was the only answer that mattered right now. The third hit caught my leg. I staggered, caught myself against the wall, and kept firing. My vision blurred at the edges, the world narrowing down to the shapes moving through the smoke and dust ahead of me. I understood, somewhere in the calm part of my mind that still worked, that I could not keep taking hits like this and expect to walk away. But walking away was not the plan. The plan was simple: keep her alive until help arrived. Everything else was a detail. A fourth hit struck near my collarbone. I felt something crack, and the pain rolled through me in a wave so large that for a moment I could not breathe. Alira's hand was on my back, holding on, refusing to let go even as I swayed on my feet. "Get down," she said, almost pleading now. "Please, get down. Let me help you." "If I get down," I said through clenched teeth, "you lose your only wall." I fired again and again, driving back 2 more attackers who tried to close the distance. My arms felt heavier with every motion, like I was moving through water instead of air. The fifth hit landed across my back as I turned to check the other side of the wall, and this one nearly took my legs out from under me. I dropped to one knee, forced myself back up, and kept my rifle raised. Elira's guards were finally returning. I could hear their footsteps pounding across the stone path behind us, shouting orders to each other, trying to flank the remaining attackers from the side. Help was close. I only needed a few more seconds. The sixth hit struck my thigh, and this time my leg gave out completely. I fell against the wall, using it to stay half upright, blood running warm down my side beneath the armor. Elira dropped down beside me, pressing her hands against the worst of the damage, shouting something toward her approaching guards that I could not fully hear anymore. The world had turned soft and distant, like I was hearing everything through a thick wall. I saw one more shape moving toward us through the haze, weapon raised, taking aim at Elira over the top of the stone wall. I do not remember deciding to move. I simply moved, pushing myself up and turning my body to block the shot meant for her. The seventh hit landed square in my shoulder, tearing through the weakened armor plate. The pain was sharp and then suddenly gone, replaced by a strange heavy numbness that spread through my whole body. I heard Elira scream my name. I heard the guards finally reaching the wall, weapons firing past us at the last attacker. And then the world simply stopped holding together, and everything went dark. The first thing I noticed, when awareness returned, was weight resting on my hand, something warm, gripping my fingers with more strength than I expected from something so small. I opened my eyes slowly. The ceiling above me was pale gold, nothing like the plain white ceilings of a military hospital. It took a moment for my mind to place the color, to remember that gold ceilings belonged to the royal quarters of the Threnna Palace. My chest felt tight, wrapped in something firm, and every part of my body ached in a dull, distant way, like the pain had been turned down to a low hum instead of a scream. I turned my head, slow and careful, and found Elira kneeling on the floor beside my bed. Not sitting in a chair, the way someone of her position would normally be expected to sit. Kneeling directly on the floor, her robes pooled around her, her smaller set of eyes fixed on my face like she had been watching it for a very long time, waiting for something to change. "You are awake," she said quietly, and her voice cracked slightly on the last word. "How long?" I managed, my throat dry and rough. 6 days, she said. "The healers said you should not have survived even one of those hits, let alone 7. They used many long words to explain how your body kept fighting anyway. I stopped listening to the long words after a while. I only listened for the number, and the number never changed. 7. You took 7 hits meant to end my life, and you were still standing when my guards finally reached us." "Guess I did not read the part where I was supposed to fall down," I said. My voice came out rough, but a small smile pulled at the corner of my mouth despite the pain. She let out a short, surprised laugh, though her eyes were shining with something close to tears. "You could have stepped aside," she said. "At any point, there would have been no shame in it. You were sent to walk beside me for show, not to die for me. Yet every single time, you chose to stay." "It was not really a choice," I said, and I meant it. "You were the only person there who could not defend herself in that moment. I could still stand, that was the whole reason. It did not need to be more complicated than that." She was quiet for a long moment, her thumb moving gently over my knuckles, as if she needed to keep checking that my hand was actually warm, actually real, actually alive under hers. "On Threnna," she said finally, "there is an old word. It is older than any treaty, older than any council. Your translators tried to explain it to me using the word champion, but that is not quite right. A champion competes in a contest. This word means something closer to the one who remained standing when standing offered nothing and cost everything. We have not given that title to anyone in 400 years, because we stopped having wars that produced people who deserved it." "I am not looking for a title," I said. "I know," she said, and something like a smile tugged at the edges of her mouth. "That is exactly why you are going to receive one anyway." Before I could argue, the door opened, and a tall man in a formal uniform stepped inside, followed by 2 of Elira's advisors. I recognized him as General Callum, one of the senior officers assigned to human and Threnna cooperation. He looked between Elira, still kneeling on the floor beside my bed, and me, lying wrapped in bandages, with an expression that suggested he was trying very hard not to react to what he was seeing. "Your Highness," he said carefully, "the council is waiting." "Let them wait a little longer," Illyra said, without looking away from me. Callum cleared his throat. "There is also the matter of the attack itself. We have identified who sent those soldiers. It was not a random group. They were funded by the Voran War Council, hoping to remove you before Threnna could decide which side of this conflict to join." Illyra's jaw tightened. "Then they made a very costly mistake," she said. "They wanted to frighten me away from humanity. Instead, they showed me exactly what your people are willing to give for someone who is not even their own to protect." She finally looked up at Callum. "Tell the council that Threnna will sign the alliance, not as a courtesy, not as a gesture for the cameras, because I have seen, with my own eyes, what it costs to stand for something, and I no longer wish to imagine standing on the other side of that choice." Callum's eyes widened slightly, clearly not expecting such a direct answer so soon. "I will inform them immediately," he said, and left the room quickly, the two advisors following close behind. Once the door closed, Illyra turned back to me, her expression softening again. "You should rest," she said. "The healers will be upset if they learn you were talking this long already." "I have been asleep for 6 days," I said. "I think I have rested enough." She laughed again, this time more freely, and for a moment, the exhaustion and fear from the past week seemed to lift slightly from her face. "You are stubborn," she said. "So I have been told," I said. A soft knock came at the door, and a young woman stepped inside carrying a tray of medical supplies. I recognized her as Grace Whitfield, one of the human medics assigned to the joint mission. She gave a small nod toward Illyra, clearly used to finding the Empress there by now, and moved to check the monitors near my bed. "Vitals are stable," Grace said after a moment, sounding relieved. "Much better than yesterday. You are lucky, Ethan. 7 hits should have finished you long before backup arrived." "Luck had very little to do with it," Illyra said quietly. "He made a choice, and he kept making it, over and over, until his body finally gave out beneath him." Grace glanced between us, seemed to sense the weight in the room, and simply nodded before finishing her checks and stepping back out, leaving the two of us alone again. "I keep thinking about the moment before the last hit," Illyra said after a while, her voice quieter now. "I saw the shape aiming at me over the wall. I opened my mouth to call out a warning, and before I could even finish forming the words, you had already turned yourself into the path of that shot. I did not even see you decide to move. It simply happened, faster than thought." "That is usually how it works," I said. "There is no time to decide. Your body already knows what needs to happen before your mind catches up." "That frightens me," she admitted. "Because it means the next time danger comes, you might do the exact same thing again, without giving yourself even a moment to choose otherwise." "If it means you get to keep breathing," I said, "then yes, I probably will." She lowered her head slightly, and for a long moment, neither of us said anything. The only sound in the room was the soft hum of the medical equipment and the faint sound of wind moving past the tall windows outside. Over the following days, as my body slowly recovered, word of the attack and its outcome spread across dozens of worlds. Threnna's decision to join the Alliance came at a critical moment in the larger war, one that many military analysts later said helped shift the balance in humanity's favor. Ships from Threnna's fleet joined the defense lines within weeks, adding firepower and resources that had been desperately needed for months. I was not fully aware of the political weight of what had happened until General Callum visited again, this time with a folder full of reports and a rare look of genuine respect on his face. "Do you understand what you actually did out there?" he asked, sitting in the chair beside my bed, instead of standing at attention as he usually did. "I protected the person I was assigned to protect," I said simply. "You did more than that," Callum said. "Word of what happened has spread through every allied system by now. People are calling it proof that humanity will stand by its promises, even when the cost is high. Recruitment numbers have gone up. Several neutral systems that were hesitant to join the Alliance have reopened talks because of this, all because one soldier refused to step aside." I did not know what to say to that, so I simply nodded and let the silence sit between us for a moment. There is also the matter of your recovery, Callum added. The healers say you will need several more weeks before you are fit for active duty again. Command has decided to give you an extended leave once you are cleared, given everything you have been through. I would rather get back to work, I said honestly. Callum smiled slightly, the first genuine smile I had seen from him in a long time. I figured you would say that. But orders are orders. Rest first. The fight will still be there when you are ready for it. After he left, Elira returned, as she did nearly every day during my recovery, sometimes staying only a few minutes, other times staying for hours, simply talking about small things, about her childhood on Threnna, about the pressures of ruling a people during uncertain times, about the strange, sudden bond that had formed between us in the middle of chaos and pain. I never properly thanked you, she said one evening, sitting in the chair beside my bed instead of kneeling on the floor this time, now that I could sit up on my own. You joined the Alliance, I said. That was thanks enough. That was a decision for my people, she said. This is different. She reached into a small pouch at her side and pulled out a thin silver band, etched with symbols I did not recognize. This is the mark of the title I mentioned before, the one who remained standing. It has not been given in 400 years, and after everything you did, my council agreed unanimously that no one else has earned it more. She placed the band gently into my hand, her fingers lingering for a moment against mine. I still do not need a title, I said quietly. I know, she said, echoing her earlier words with a small, warm smile. That is exactly why you deserve one. Weeks later, once the healers finally cleared me for light duty, I stood at the edge of the same causeway where the attack had happened. The stone wall had been repaired, the scorch marks from the blasts carefully cleaned away, though I doubted anyone who had been there that day would ever forget what happened on this quiet stretch of ground. Elira walked up beside me, her guards keeping a respectful distance this time, no longer treating every open space as a potential threat, thanks to the increased security measures put in place after the attack. Does it feel strange? She asked. Standing here again? A little, I admitted, but mostly it just reminds me why the job matters. She looked out over the field where the attackers had once emerged from the trees, now quiet and empty under the afternoon light. Threnna owes you a debt that cannot truly be repaid, she said. Not with titles, not with medals, not with alliances. You gave your body as a shield without asking what it would cost you afterward. I would do it again, I said, and I meant every word. She turned to look at me, her expression thoughtful. I believe you, she said. That is what makes it matter so much. We stood there together for a while longer, watching the wind move gently across the open field, the same field that had nearly become the site of both our deaths just weeks earlier. Somewhere beyond the horizon, ships from a dozen different worlds were gathering, preparing for the larger battles still to come, battles that Threnna would now face alongside humanity instead of watching from a careful distance. I did not know exactly what the future held, or how many more difficult days waited ahead in this long, costly war. But standing there beside Elira, feeling the weight of the silver band now resting in my pocket, I understood one simple truth clearly for the first time. Sometimes the most important battles are not won through strategy or numbers or clever plans. Sometimes they are won simply because one person refuses to move, refuses to step aside, and chooses, again and again, to stand between danger and the person who needs protecting, no matter what it costs. And sometimes, if you are fortunate enough to survive that choice, you wake up to find that the person you protected never truly left your side at all.